everybody was like, oh, you're just detoxing, just stay on it, it's okay. They kept sending me to the doctor, and the doctor kept saying, you're fine, nothing's wrong. So if it doesn't show up in your labs, you don't get answers. Every single person told me it was in my head. She's the first person who said, I can't fix you if you're vegan. No one had ever said that to me. She said, I can't heal you or fix you or help you if you're going to be vegan. It won't work.
Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast presented by Jigsaw Health, where we share health horror stories that inspire. Today's guest is Monica Hershaft. Her personal health struggles began with a detox cleanse gone wrong. Her symptoms gradually escalated over 3 months until she found herself with a mystery illness, unable to work, and stuck in survival mode. She began her journey back to health when she finally advocated for herself and started looking outside of her blood work and labs, all which indicated that nothing was wrong.
Before we dive in, just a quick reminder, this podcast is for informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical advice. Please always consult with a healthcare professional before making any changes to your health routine.
This is the Rock Bottom Podcast. Well, Monica Hershaft, we are so excited to have you. Healthcare practitioner, nutritional expert, and expert in mystery illness, which is what I'm super intrigued by.
Yes.
I mean, how many mystery illnesses are there out there? Oh my gosh.
I mean, more than one, that's for sure.
So many.
That's the thing, is that it's a mystery.
Right.
So if it doesn't show up in your labs, you don't get answers.
Exactly. Well, and like most people, what led you here was probably something that happened in your own life. So we would like to talk about, let's go back to your rock bottom moment and how you ended up where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my case, I was not involved in anything to do with health whatsoever. And I was just living my life in Los Angeles, doing the acting thing. And I had done this detox program that was really hip and trendy, and all my friends were doing it. It was the LA thing. And I got violently sick on it. And so, everybody was like, oh, you're just detoxing, just stay on it, it's okay. And I ended up staying on that detox for 3 months. And it takes 3 months for tissue change to happen in the body. So that was one of the first mistakes. But
3-month detox?
What happened in my case was that technically most people were on it for 2 to 3 weeks. And how you would determine if you were done is you would feel this amazing lightness. You'd have all this energy. You would just know you were done. And this was being supervised by professionals. There were health professionals involved. And in my case, I just kept getting worse. And so finally, it got to the point where I started to feel, I started to feel that if I did not stop, I was going to die. It literally felt like I was going to die.
What kind of symptoms were you experiencing in this class?
So, and this also keep in mind, I had no issues prior to this in my mind and opinion. And so at this point, I think I was around 33 or 34. And it basically started with just extreme fatigue and difficulty sleeping, where I was getting heart palpitations and anxiety. And then these symptoms were growing more and more to the point where the brain fog was unimaginable. And the skin started coming off my face and bleeding. And then I stopped being able to eat solid food. So it felt like I was getting stabbed every time I tried to eat anything. It was excruciating. And so I was trying to just eat mushy food or eat liquid foods, and I would avoid eating because it was so painful and it just felt terrible no matter what I ate.
Wow. I can't even, you must have been so scared at that point.
I was almost too exhausted to be scared. I was in survival mode at that point. I felt more so, and a lot of people can relate to this who've been through mystery illness. I felt more so like, I'm weird. Something's wrong with me. I'm a bizarre case. No one else has something weird. Everyone else has normal diagnoses, and
Right.
so I kept feeling like, okay, I'm a bizarre exception to the rule. And a lot of people report feeling that way that I've worked with that come in dealing with mystery illness, because the doctors kind of make you feel like that. They kept sending me to the doctor, and the doctor kept saying, you're fine, nothing's wrong. And
Did they do blood work or anything?
oh yeah, they
or-
did everything.
And how was your blood work?
Everything was normal. Everything you could do was normal.
While you're going through all of this and cannot even eat solid food, everything was normal.
Yeah.
And your skin is falling off your face.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was during the time you're still doing this cleanse. At what point did you say, I think the cleanse is the problem?
Well, it was about 3 months in. I remember I weirdly started it on a holiday and finished it on a holiday. So I started it, it was like Thanksgiving when I started it, end of November. And I didn't go, let's see, November, December. Yes, it was almost 3 full months and I ended on Valentine's Day. So I remember it was weirdly 2 holidays.
Bookended.
I did, which is bizarre. Yeah, so I stopped. I was advised I wasn't done, and I stopped because I thought I can't handle it getting any worse.
Right.
I couldn't work at this point. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't do anything. Like I was
cannot believe
completely
the doctor
incapacitated.
was telling you to continue on.
Basically, and I did start going to other doctors, obviously, once I, stopped participating in this because I kept, and this, the big lesson in this for those of you listening is that if you feel like something's wrong, something's wrong. We are taught to not trust our own instinct over what we're being told by the health professional. And that's where things, I think, for me, the big lesson and where things got screwed up is that everything inside me was telling me to stop, but I was not valuing my own opinion over what I was being told by the health professionals. And that's what I think made things so bad for me because they were like, you're just detoxing. It's just a detox. And I'm thinking, this is really bad.
You're like, well, then I really had some problems if I'm detoxing this hard.
Yeah. And then, and I know we're going to get more into this, but I did start to wonder if me being born and raised vegan, I started out vegetarian and then my dad became vegan and I became vegan. I think I was around 11 or 12. And so I thought to myself, I wonder if that has anything to do with this. So I did bring it up when I would go in to see doctors, and the answer was always, no, what you eat has nothing to do with anything. That was just the answer every time. And at that point, I had only been going to medical doctors because I didn't even know what holistic was, and I didn't know there was another option out there.
Right. It's not a common thing. Plus, they don't usually take insurance. And so it's just hasn't been, I don't know, a big part of our culture, I feel like.
I just had never heard of it. It just wasn't in my universe,
Right.
Yeah. So, you just went to your annual gyno exam and you're
Right. Check the boxes.
And if you needed antibiotics, they wrote you a script.
Yeah, and
Easy peasy.
I had never needed anything. Like I did what most people who grew up in my era did, went on birth control when I was in high school, and back then the pills were really, really strong with the hormones and ate a lot of tofu and veggies because I thought that's what you're supposed to eat as a vegan and, which a lot of vegans do. And I lived on coffee. I had the extra, whatever the biggest is that they call it, coffee bean and tea leaf, was like a sugar-free mocha soy latte. I mean, every day, all day.
Yeah.
To just function, which I thought was normal.
Okay, so when did you realize that there was a better option or a different option rather than a medical doctor? How did you find a holistic health care
It wasn't
option?
so much a realization. It was just I was basically playing pin the tail on the donkey and just trying anything and everything because I got to a point after a certain number of years went by. Well, I mean, actually, we should back up. We should backtrack because I assumed I'd get better when I stopped the detox.
Right.
Right? Wouldn't you think that?
Yes.
It didn't happen.
Because you felt good before the detox.
Yeah. So after the detox, I continued to worsen.
Oh, no.
And that's when it got really scary because during the detox, you can use the detox as the reason you're not feeling well. Once the detox was over and months started going by, it got scary because now the
Because you're
detox,
still not driving or anything during that time.
and I'm not doing, and it wasn't as bad at first. It just continued to get worse, and symptoms continued to get more and more exacerbated as time went on. So the frequency, the consistency, and the severity kept increasing.
And your diet was consisting of just
Vegan.
And everything hurt your stomach still at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do next?
Well, I just went to every doctor under the sun. So I had been making money as an actor, which made me qualify for Screen Actors Guild insurance, which is at the time, I don't know how it is now, but at the time it was really good insurance. And so you could go and see whoever you wanted and it was covered. And I went to every one. I went to Cedars-Sinai. I went to neurologists. I went to GI specialists. I went to endocrinologists. I went like every single type of doctor I went to. And
Over the space of how long? 6 months?
This is years.
Years. And this is about what time frame?
This
90s,
illness was
2000s?
almost 10 years long.
Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
this was during, I guess, what decade?
So it started in, I know because I watched the planes fly into the buildings from my bed when I was sick. So it was, I started in Thanksgiving 2000 and ended on Valentine's Day 2001.
And then for the next 10 years, you were
I was sick.
chasing doctors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Almost 10 years. It was 9 and change. And there were varying degrees. It's not like I was sick and then I recovered. There were varying degrees of discoveries and solutions along the way. There would be Band-Aids and then those would stop working. So it was a whole journey of just desperate throwing spaghetti at the ceiling, hoping something sticks, feeling crazy, feeling hopeless, feeling doomed.
Yeah.
This is my new normal, you know? Can I live with this or not? Because it's like being trapped in an invisible prison. You don't get a break. You don't get to take time off. You're trapped. And you have been given no information to indicate you're ever going to get out.
And all of these specialty doctors, all of these different practitioners, no one could point to anything that was wrong with you.
Every single person told me it was in my head. Every single person tried to put me on antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds. And I was like, there was an event. This is not depression.
Yeah.
And they're like, your symptoms are depression. Because I'm exhausted. I can't get out of bed. I'm having trouble standing up long enough to take a shower. I can't get anything done. I can't think straight. They're like, that's depression. You just have really severe depression or it's anxiety or whatever. Because I couldn't sleep. I was having heart palpitations. So everything was emotional. And there's this phenomenon that I personally feel that I have witnessed with a lot of the people I've worked with over the years as well. There's this sort of women being treated like hysterical females when they go in for help, less so than when men go in for help.
Right.
When I work more with women than with men, and a lot of times when it's a man, sometimes they come in on their own, but a lot of times they're brought in after the woman has already started working with me, and I love working with couples together. But women are just more likely to go seek help sooner. They're more, I guess, proactive, and I can't speak for everyone because, of course, there's exceptions to that rule, but I've never had a man come in and communicate these frustrations when they've gone to the doctor, ever. I've only had women basically been told they've been either been put on antidepressants and didn't feel like they had another solution, and frequently more than one, like sometimes 2 or 3, or mixing depression and anxiety meds, or they're basically, eye-rolled, gaslit, made to feel like they're overreacting and being dramatic, which is
like
the
your body's
hysterical
just going
female
through
syndrome.
hormone changes.
Yeah, and that because I was in my mid-30s, I did get some of that. When I went to the endocrinologist, they did an ultrasound. And I think back to that period, and I didn't have one female doctor. They were all men. And he also got I don't want to say he was condescending, but he definitely didn't. I didn't feel like anyone believed me, more so than anything else. I didn't feel believed. I felt like people were treating me like I was just being a drama queen. And that was, I think, the hardest part of it, because I started to then doubt myself, which is the aftermath of being gaslit. You start doubting your reality. And so, and it really is, I really feel like that's a classic example of medical gaslighting and it's such a huge phenomenon today, because if it doesn't show up in the labs, it doesn't exist. And so that endocrinologist basically was like, you're at that age, it's probably pre-perimenopause and da-da-da. And, the only thing I can tell you is to go on an antidepressant. And if you want me to prescribe that, I will. And I just was like, I can't like.
How frustrating.
Yeah. But the one thing that I knew to be true that I did stick to is I never went on any of those meds because it didn't resonate for me. I thought there was an event. If this had just happened out of nowhere gradually over time, maybe I would have thought that. But there was an event with a tipping point where I ceased to be Monica. It was over.
What was that event?
The detox.
Yeah.
It was a 3-month event, I guess. That's what you're saying.
Started right away.
It started right.
It started right away.
Yeah.
Like within the first week.
That was the trigger. Was there anything before that event? Was there anything?
No.
Okay, so
Zero.
yeah,
Nothing.
so you're like there was an event. It was the detox.
And I was also an
I'm
athlete. I was a
stuck in-
dancer.
Okay.
I was a dancer. I was working on sets long hours. I was running a business. I worked out. I've been working out at the gym since Bally's was born. I literally, like back in the days of aerobics, I did everything. I've always been an athlete. I've been dancing since I was 2. I was very in touch with my body. And I literally couldn't do normal things, you know? Yeah. So that was very dramatic difference for me.
And talk a little bit more about your background. So you were a working actor. I believe maybe you said that your parents were actors as well?
No.
No, okay.
Activists.
My dad.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad.
Talk a little bit more about your background, and then we'll get into the
how things started to get better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so my parents are Holocaust survivors, and my dad was a scientist, and he was assigned to assess conditions at a factory farm slaughterhouse as part of his job. And so when he went there, he could, animals are screaming and there was blood everywhere and body parts and everything. And it's very different than going to a normal, what we're familiar with here, like going to a family farm where they do humane kills. And it's, more of a different environment where there's a humane environment for the animals and they're out in the sun and they're, it's a different situation. They're being abused, tortured, and terrorized in the factory farming community. And then also there have been a lot of studies done that a lot of the people that work in those environments go home and are violent in their personal lives as well. There's just a culture of violence in these environments because it becomes normalized. Sort of like when people are playing all those violent video games and then they always have, reports of school shootings and things like that. I'm not blaming it on the video games, but
you become
it's
desensitized.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yes, exactly. And so he came from that very traumatized because it made him remember what it was like growing up in the Holocaust and seeing bodies in the streets and watching his grandmother get shot in the head and all the things he witnessed as a child in the Holocaust. And he thought, I can't ever eat another animal. And so that's what began this journey for him. And he ended up becoming basically the founder of the animal rights movement in the United States back in the early 70s. And so back then it was just, there was no such thing as animal rights. It was like some people were vegetarians, you know? And so he went to some kind of a vegetarian thing and ended up meeting Ingrid Newkirk, who founded PETA later. And they were talking about this phenomenon of wanting to protect the animals. And, Ingrid was more focused on vivisection and animal experimentation, which they were doing a lot of back then. They were doing a lot of stuff with monkeys, monkey skulls. They were doing a lot of stuff with bunnies, with makeup and things like that. And
what is vivisection?
Vivisection is when you basically cut open animals for experimental reasons and torture them to check makeup. Like they would force bunnies, they would put makeup in their eyes and force their eyes open. And they were crushing live monkey skulls to see impact for head injuries. There's a lot of just horrific abuse where they torture and experiment on animals for humankind, so that this makeup has been animal tested. Well, the animal testing is torturous, stuff like that. And then, and what was interesting, so back then when they were figuring out what they wanted to do, and my dad wanted to bring all of the atrocities of factory farming out to the public, and Ingrid was more interested in vivisection. And so, my dad started the organization Farm, which went on to produce these giant international animal rights events every year since the 1980s on both coasts, with thousands of people and speakers and plenaries and booths. And then Ingrid started PETA with Alex Pacheco, who was her partner at the time. And so I remember them from when I was little. I mean, they were just around all the time, and that was just a part of our life, you know. And my dad was very involved. We were always going to events and protests and things like that. And I helped him back in the day. We didn't have internet. We used to do everything by hand. I used to do all the mailings and address the envelopes for all the invitations and everything, you know. So, but yeah, so basically, there was, we didn't have cable TV yet. It was kind of starting in the 80s. And so my dad was like, I think he did the Dinah Shore show, and then he did Phil Donahue. And when CNN came out, he was on CNN. And then I remember when he was on the Phil Donahue show, I think I was like 18 by then. And I had just gotten into a really serious car accident where I was almost killed, and I had a really severe head injury. My seatbelt wasn't on. It was a full speed collision, and I was recovering, and I was watching him because we didn't have a way to really record things. And so I was watching him on the Phil Donahue show. I think we had maybe a Betamax or something back then. But anyway, and we did get a recording of it eventually. But he was on there with Ingrid. So they had a panel on the Phil Donahue show with Ingrid for PETA, my dad, and there was like some other people that rescued sea or dolphins or something. I forget the name. They're a famous organization with the word sea in it. Anyway, and so when they did audience questions, because Phil Donahue was famous for that, somebody stood up and because they were talking and they were showing video clips from the monkey skulls getting crushed. Like they would have the monkeys would be tied down and they would be crushing them alive, you know, just to like test out head injuries and impact and stuff like that. And so this one guy stood up in the audience. It was really weird. Like I almost wondered if it was planned. And he asked, you know, he goes, how would you feel if you had a child that was in a car accident with a head injury, and wouldn't you be grateful that the monkey skull experimentation? And my dad was like, actually, my daughter had a head injury last week, and the monkey skull crushing did nothing to help her. It was really funny. It was almost like on cue.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It was really exciting at that time, you know, seeing my dad doing all these things, trying to make a difference on the planet. And, you know, he changed the way school lunches are offered. He created Great American Meat Out. He, you know, Oprah was doing stuff with my dad's events and stuff. It was just a lot of exciting time in the 80s, you know, and when it got to that point and just being a part of all that. So it just never occurred to me to not be vegan.
I bet.
It was in your blood.
Yeah. It wasn't like I was really given a choice, but I also was raised watching the videos of the slaughters. Well, you know, we didn't have YouTube back then. We didn't have internet. Like I was seeing actual footage of slaughter, you know, as a child. And you know, you're very impacted by that imagery. And so I had no interest in eating animals.
I can imagine you did not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead too much.
No, it's fine.
But
It's fine.
Do you eat animals now?
Yes. So that's how I got my health back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was not able to get my health back as a vegan, and I tried valiantly for many, many, many years. And it wasn't until I started eating. And again, let me reiterate, it's not conventional animal protein. So the difference when you're doing conventional animal protein and you're looking at antibiotics, hormones, even mRNA that they're putting in the animals, and the pesticides and the way they're kept, the torture, the cortisol levels, laying in their own filth, open sores, you're eating that.
Yeah.
That's not good for you. That's why
Factory
people,
farming.
you know, and meat has a bad rap for that reason, and rightfully so. You should not eat that meat. If I have a choice between eating a conventional factory farmed animal in a restaurant and not eating one at all, I will choose not eating one at all because they are poison. But if you eat grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic, you know, humane environment, that actually heals your body and prevents you from getting sick and protects you. They do the opposite to the body.
So when you go out to a restaurant, you just stay away from animal protein altogether?
No, there's tons of restaurants that have good protein.
Yeah, it depends on where you go.
I guess it depends on where you go, but you're seeking out restaurants that have grass-fed. And
have you not seen the new documentary, Breaking Big Food?
As a matter of fact, I have. It's very, very good.
Okay. So, Monica, what was the tipping point 10 years in your health odyssey, your health journey? What was the tipping point that said, I think I'll try a burger? Or what was it? What happened?
So what's interesting is in my case, it wasn't even a tipping point. So what happened is I had tried everything. And at this point, well, first let me explain how I first found holistic, because that was the beginning of finding this answer to getting my life back. And not just, I don't want to say getting my health back. I got my life back, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I spent a really long time, I want to be clear about this. I spent a really long time going to bed at night and vacillating between wondering if I was going to wake up the next morning or not, and wishing I wouldn't. Those were the two. It was one or the other every night when I went to bed, because A, I was sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night for years, and B, I was having graphic, horrific nightmares almost every night. So it was like being tortured.
Yeah, nighttime was not your friend.
No.
And then when you're running on fumes, essentially, because the body just can't function.
Yeah, and I could barely eat on top of it.
Yeah.
So, a size 0 was big on me, Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And everyone in LA is like, you look great.
You're like, oh my gosh.
Like, I'm dying.
Yeah, thanks.
And and so basically, somebody I knew, and you know what, I'd like to actually, go over here for a second and talk about the fact that when people are going through this type of a journey, you tend to eventually lose who you think your friends are. So part of this is not just what you're going through physically, but there's something to be said when you can't get a diagnosis and you're this sick, where people start to wonder if maybe you are being dramatic or making things up or wanting attention or, stuff like that. And so the first couple of years, obviously was okay. But after like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, people start dropping off and just stop responding to you and stop participating with you. People I was friends with for 15 years fell out.
Oh, that must have been so hurtful.
It was really hurtful. And I really felt crazy. And so between having doctors not believe you, even my parents were kind of like, because you can't get any answers and you're going to this many doctors, it starts to be like, maybe this is mental,
Right.
And you also have to remember there's a lot more awareness for these sorts of things now than there was at that time.
Yeah, because that was what year or what?
2001, 2002, 2003.
Things have come a long way
like
since
MySpace was happening back then.
Right.
And I was writing about what I was going through on MySpace, because they had the blogosphere in MySpace, to like whoever's reading it, I have no idea, because we didn't even have Instagram yet. And I think Facebook was kind of a baby still. And people were responding and going, oh my God, I have a weird thing too. No one can figure out. I had to move back in with my parents. My boyfriend dumped me, blah, blah, blah. So that's when I started to realize, wait a minute, this is happening and no one's talking about it because we're made to feel ashamed. That's how I figured that out. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't written about it on MySpace, I would have to this day thought it was just me. Mm-hmm. And so that weirdly made me keep going.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And you're like, all of a sudden you have a bit of a community of people that are, that
I wouldn't necessarily call them community yet, but definitely like, there are other people secretly going through this.
Yes. It's not just you.
Yes. And what I found at that time, that's been around a long time, that is a secret community of people like this, is butyoudon'tlooksick.com. They're also known as the Spoonies. And the reason they're known as the Spoonies, and you'll see if you go on Instagram and look at hashtag Spoonie, hashtag Spoonie Warrior, hashtag Spoonie Sisterhood, there's like all these Spoonie hashtags and hashtag But You Don't Look Sick. It's a whole community of people. Some of them do have diagnosis in terms of, what we call invisible illness, like maybe they had Lyme or they had, some sort of something that's diagnosable, but they're being told by people, but you don't look sick, but you don't look sick. And I was getting that all the time too. And so, so I was like, oh, these are my people. And so the woman who started that, wrote a story about what it was like to try to explain to people what it's like to live your life in this condition. And so she was talking about sitting down in a restaurant and having a certain number of spoons. And she was like, you wake up and you don't know how many spoons you're going to have for the day. So do you have to do laundry? Do you have to run an errand? You have to choose according to priority because you might run out of spoons at noon. You might run out of spoons at 4. So she did this whole demo with these spoons, explaining like you wake up and know how many hours you have in the day. We don't. You know, it could be anything. You can't plan. You can't commit to things because you never know if you're going to be okay or not that day at all, let alone how many hours of functioning you're going to get. And that was what my life was like for almost 10 years. Wow. So that was called Spoonie because the spoon story.
I'm going to have to look that up.
It's a whole secret world out there.
Okay. I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So getting back to what you originally asked. So basically, before I lost all my friends, I still had a little group of friends that I was in touch with. One of them had a brother that was an osteopath, which for those of you that don't know, that's a medical doctor, but they're a little more holistic. They look at the whole body and they are able to run certain types of tests that are beyond normal labs. And so that was in Orange County. I was living in LA, so that was kind of a long drive. And I was like, anyone who suggested anything, I did it. I literally was like a yes to everything. And so and I mean everything. And so I went to him and he was able to run some different type of a lab test he was able to determine that there was something wrong with my phase 2 liver function, but he didn't know why, what, or what to do about it. But that was the first time somebody found something.
Right. And phase 2 liver function,
okay.
Does that refer to detox? Like phase 1 detox, phase 2 detox?
That it does refer to detox, but also phase 2 is gallbladder. So phase 1 is when your body bags up the trash. Phase 2 is when your body throws the trash out.
Okay.
If you're doing a detox program, and you bag up all that trash intentionally and pull it out of your tissues and you can't dump it, what do you think that does?
Okay, now.
Auto-intoxication.
Yes.
Auto-intoxication happens. It dumps it right back in, and it makes you feel like you have a severe hangover 24/7. It's horrible.
That was the event.
You also can't digest fats because your gallbladder is not doing its job properly. And so what I found down the road, and I'll tell you how I got there, is this detox program was using supplementation. And part of what I learned later when I got into my work and my training is that synthetic supplementation causes a lot of deficiencies and is really bad for your body. And especially if you're doing supplements that your body doesn't want or need, it will have a bad reaction. And so they were using a lot of niacin to help flush the toxins out of the tissue. Well, what I found out through my research that nobody else seemed to know, because many of you may not know this, but medical doctors do not have nutrition training and they don't actually check you for any deficiencies or imbalances with your nutrition. That's not a thing that people do. It's not any training in the medical degree, and it's not anything people think to ask for. So imagine if your body and your organs are developing without any animal protein for your entire life. Now I want you to imagine the deficiency that you would have would be choline, because choline comes from meat and eggs. So niacin, which they were giving us synthetic on this detox, as part of the detox protocol, we did saunas and we took these supplements. And so niacin and choline balance each other. So if you're taking high levels of niacin and you're already choline deficient, it's going to make you even more choline deficient, and it's basically going to take you to dangerous levels of choline deficiency, especially if you're on it for 3 months instead of 2 weeks.
Yes.
So that's basically why that tipping point happened for me.
Wow.
Because there is this brewing situation with not eating any animal products and eating high levels of soy, which affect thyroid function, not enough to show up in labs. But, you know, a lot of times you can have a malfunctioning thyroid. It will not show up in labs. Also, they don't run all the thyroid labs unless you ask them to. And who knows to ask for that? They do one thyroid test maybe, but they don't run all of the levels.
A full panel.
Yeah.
They'll maybe do a T3.
No one ever did that on me.
What
No
do they
one ever
normally
ran the
do?
whole
if they
thing.
run thyroid and say, oh, it looks fine, what do they normally do? Do they check T4 or T3?
No, they don't. They didn't do anything else.
They don't do any of those.
Well, I can't speak to what they do now or what individual people do now, but at the time,
then,
nobody ran extra thyroid on me at all.
Yeah.
And so
because there's a lot of different ways to look at.
Well, as I
thyroid
mentioned, I saw an endocrinologist who rolled his eyes at me and basically tried to put me on an antidepressant. He didn't check anything extra.
Wow.
And so so basically, in that situation, I'm doing high levels of soy. I'm eating really clean and healthy, but I'm doing high levels of soy at almost every meal because I thought that. Also on this detox program, they advise that we eat protein at every meal. And so my protein was tofu.
Tofu, yeah.
So you're just bombarding your body with soy.
That's affecting your body's ability to absorb minerals. That's affecting your estrogen levels. That's affecting your hormones. That's affecting your thyroid's body. I mean, everything is...
Yeah. It's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. And so basically, none of that stuff was run and none of those deficiencies were run. And so that's basically what happened to me at the time. And so cutting back to where we left off in the story with the osteopath, he was trying to give me herbs for my liver function, and it just made me worse. Anything anyone gave me made me worse. And so, but at least I had some kind of a finding. So it made me feel a little less crazy. And so at that point, he advised me to do hyperbaric oxygen chambers. And so I was doing hyperbaric oxygen, which is extremely expensive. Like back then it was $350 a visit. It's probably even more now. Yeah. And so I was doing that like 2 or 3 times a week just to stay functional.
Wow.
And you felt a difference on that.
Yes, but it was a Band-Aid and it would wear off because it wasn't fixing the root cause. And, I'm also lucky that my dad had money because I couldn't work. And to be totally honest with you, if my dad hadn't stepped up and been there for me and helped me, I would have been homeless in a box. I had no form of income and no way to work. And I had expensive medical bills that weren't covered by insurance.
Right.
So at this point, we're in the realm of insurance won't cover here.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So while I was doing the hyperbaric oxygen, my dad was like, well, there's not much longer we're going to be doing this because
wow.
Everything has a limit.
What are you going to do this 3 times a week for the rest of your life? And so at this point we're looking at $1,000 a week to stay functional.
Why was the HBOT, why was that Band-Aid working?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, there's lots of seemingly very good benefits to it. I just was wondering if you had a theory as to why
it was Band-Aid, but I don't have a theory. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I didn't know anything about health back then, and I don't really look into that type of methodology now because I don't work with it. So I have no idea.
Okay. So the osteopath, I'm curious as to the herbs that he recommended. Was it like a milk thistle or
this was so many years ago? I have no idea.
Okay,
and I was so sick I could barely stand up.
And the brain fog.
Couldn't have spelled thistle
back
then.
I also didn't have any awareness or knowledge in this area back then. I was just an actress.
And you were like, all right, I'll take it if you think it's going to work. You probably...
Well, it didn't even occur to me to not take it because I was, dying fast. I wasn't going to, anything anyone told me to do. If they had told me to drink my own pee, I would have done it. If they had told me to, and this is something I heard about, which is still happening to this day, where they do fecal transplants.
Yeah.
Like I would have done anything. I don't care what it is. I would do it because I just wanted to feel like a normal person again. And I was also in extraordinary pain. I have an extremely high pain tolerance now because I was in so much pain for so many years. I actually got my metal fillings replaced without anesthesia because my pain tolerance is like through the roof because of how much pain I was in for so long.
Well, I definitely want to come back and ask you about metal fillings, but before we go there, how did you start to fix the choline? Yeah, exactly. What was next?
Yeah. So
when did you find out about choline?
We didn't know about the choline yet.
Yeah.
So basically, when that wasn't working, and not only was it not working, it made me worse. Obviously, I didn't go to him anymore because he just ran out of ideas. He was like, I don't know what else to try. Yeah. Now, I do want to mention, this is important for everybody to know, they ran stool samples because he thought I might have parasites, and the stool samples came back negative. What we know now, which we didn't know then, is that 11 out of 12 stool samples are false negatives. It's really hard to even find them in a stool sample. That's why muscle testing is so much more accurate, because they have to be in the sigmoid colon, that you have to get the right part of the poop. It's just a journey, and they could be anywhere. So anyway, so that came back negative at the time. There was a lot of other people and things I tried after that. And then, I went to see this one person. So what happens is you start to make friends with the people you see in the waiting room over time because all the sickies are like in the waiting room. And this one guy,
all the spoonies together,
yeah,
in the drawer.
So I got to know this one girl, and we started being friendly, and so we were both seeing this other practitioner who did muscle testing. And I don't remember how I heard about him, but he was also a person who found a lot of stuff through the muscle testing. That's the first time I'd ever had muscle testing done. But he would create his own from scratch herbal concoctions based on what he would find. And everything he gave me made me worse as well. But I stayed with him for a really long time because he found something.
Yeah.
What did he find?
Well, he found, he said that I had parasites. He said that I had fungus. He said that I had, I don't remember all the details because I was in such bad shape back then, but he found pathogens that made sense.
And when you say he found them,
Muscle
you're
testing.
talking about muscle. So describe muscle testing for members of the audience that might not know what that is.
He did a very different, very weird muscle testing that I can't describe because I don't remember all the details from it. And it was something he did with your feet. Like you'd be laying down and he would move your feet and do stuff that it's something I've never seen since.
But it's getting biofeedback from the body.
Yeah. And he also, for those of you who may not know this person, us in the sicky world have heard of Hulda Clark. She used to do a lot of very, I guess illegal. She created this box that would zap you and supposedly kill the parasites, and she had to move to Mexico because she was getting in trouble doing it in the United States. And so he had one of those boxes too, and he was doing that, and he also did acupuncture. So there was just we were just trying everything.
Yeah.
And homeopathics and stuff like that. Anyway, it was just, I kept going because no one else legitimately thought anything was wrong with me. And so I almost didn't care that it wasn't working. I just wanted to be somewhere where I didn't feel crazy.
It made you feel like you're making some
And
progress,
also,
right?
It made you feel like you're making progress from the standpoint of I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Versus
Because when
just
you
being
have
sick.
absolutely nothing else in your life other than trying to find a way out, you need to be doing something or give up.
Yeah.
You know? So eventually, because that was a hamster wheel. Oh, the other thing about him is he was getting illegal drugs from Mexico for parasites that weren't allowed in the U.S. He actually got in trouble for that later, I heard, through the grapevine. And so those drugs would make the parasites release from the bowel wall and come out, but it would leave behind perforations where they had nested into the intestinal wall. So actually, let me backtrack now that I'm telling this story. That's when the pain started for me in the intestines, was when I was on his protocol. So I wasn't having trouble eating solid food until this protocol. That's when that started. So I know that that's why it was from the parasite thing.
So even being very careful on if you discover or think that you do have parasites and you choose to do a cleanse of some kind, like that can make things worse too. You know, you think, well, perfect. I'll just do this cleanse. It'll get rid of them and I'll be better.
Yes. You don't know the integrity
Unintended
of your
consequences.
intestinal walls.
Right.
You don't know if there's damage in there, and that's dangerous. And so that was, he actually fired me as a patient. He was like, I don't know what to do with you anymore. Like I can't. And he did it. He was so frustrated that he basically went off on me in his office, and I went home crying, and that was the end of that. And my dad also was like, we can't keep paying for this. You're not making any progress. So he was looking at things from that logical standpoint. But now at this point, I'd gotten so sick, I couldn't take care of myself anymore. So after I had seen that guy, I couldn't do laundry. I couldn't make food. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't drive. And my dad had to come stay with me and take care of me. Wow. So he came out and he was staying with me at my place and driving me to appointments at that point. That's when my sick friend that I met in the waiting room at his office, she had stopped seeing him also. And so she told me, hey, there's this other woman that does muscle testing. She does a different technique. I'm seeing her now. And I was like, I'll try it. Let's go. Let's do it. So I went there, and she was also kind of a far drive, and my dad took me there. She's the first person who said, I can't fix you if you're vegan.
Whoa.
And your dad's waiting in the car.
No, he was there.
Oh, he was there.
And say that again.
She said, heal you or fix you or help you if you're going to be vegan. It won't work. No one had ever said that to me. I also had been having a weird suspicion, like, you know how you have your voice? Mm-hmm. And I had been telling every single doctor and practitioner I went to that I was vegan, and asked every single one of them, including the guy before. I had asked him specifically, I'm a vegan. Do you think that's a problem? Every single one of them said, no, it doesn't matter. Every one of them. There was another person who was holistic that also had said it doesn't matter. So, and I had brought it up every time because I was like, that's the only thing that makes me weird. You know what I mean? Like, as a body.
Right. So when she said that, what was your reaction?
Well, my dad was there, so I didn't react very strong.
You're like, earmuffs, Dad.
I was like, oh, okay. And so we get in the car, and this is a story I tell a lot. So we get in the car, and he's driving, and he goes, well, that's out. And I was like, yeah, that's out. And I'm like quiet the whole car ride.
You're like,
So we get home, and he goes into the room he's staying in, and he's working on the computer. And I go into the bathroom. I go into the shower. I close the shower thing, and I get on the phone, and I called her office, and I was like, I'll eat the meat. I can't tell my dad. I'm going to come in. I'm going to tell him that you changed your mind. Let's try this. and so wow. I literally was like, because the whole car ride home, I'm thinking, if I do this and it doesn't work, he never has to know. But what if this is the secret magic answer?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was like, and if it does work, he sees how bad this has been. He can't object to that.
Right.
And am I willing to possibly lose my dad forever if it does work and get my life back? Like, is that the trade-off? Like, if I get my life back, am I willing to let my dad go? And that's like emotional for me.
Of course.
But that was a real possibility.
Yeah. Because you're like, because he is so, obviously his whole life.
Well, his whole life's dedicated to it. Yes. And at this point, more social media has been happening over the years. Instagram's out. People are following me because of my name, because of who my dad is.
Okay.
So
it's risky for you to do this.
It's a huge
at
risk.
That point.
It's huge.
Yeah, this is
huge.
Early 2011, 2012-ish kind of a thing.
No, it was like 2007, 8.
Okay,
at this
2007,
point.
8. Okay.
Yeah, because I didn't get my health back here. So this is the first time we got a real answer, but this didn't cure me.
Okay.
All right. So what was the first thing you started to reintroduce?
So so this was really challenging, and my dad was still staying with me in the beginning until I got better. And I want to also follow this by saying that since I had other animal rights people that are well known secretly come to me and have to hide it from their partner as well, like leaders in the community.
What you started to hear was other people in
later when I went into practice and started talking about this, and I will definitely talk about that as well. Okay. But at this point, nobody knew because there wasn't, and so basically, I got emotional. Basically, at this point, so my dad was going to stay with me until I looked like I was getting better. So we were going to try this new protocol. While we were trying this new protocol, he didn't know that a lot of the supplements had animal glandulars in them. Let's start with that. And I didn't share that with him, and I didn't keep them out in the open.
Like desiccated liver, things like that?
No.
Well, no.
But it's it's hard to explain, but they're like standard process uses protomorphogens. It's not desiccated. It's very different. It's a proprietary process that standard process does. Okay. That's that they call protomorphogen. That's kind of complicated to explain, but it's an
animal product.
Everything's derived from bovine, ovine, and porcine, which is basically cow, sheep, and pig.
Okay.
And so they are specifically related to specific organs, as well as even with the digestive repair, even with the stuff that you're using to kill pathogens. And they're, that's how it works. Okay. So what happened with her was, so I started the protocol, and how I started, which was very difficult, was I wasn't going to ever do red meat. I thought, okay, it's in the supplements, but I'm not going to eat it. Because, again, I grew up watching these videos. And also like at this point, my dad was kind of a big name in the animal rights industry, where I remember being in Europe with him and someone recognizing his name on the credit card we paid with. Like, he was a name in the industry. Mm-hmm. And I remember people starting to follow me on social media and reaching out and being like, oh my God, your dad's amazing. Your dad this, your dad that, so like I knew, I was like, okay, he's like a big deal in the animal rights industry. And I was proud of him, and I didn't want to start eating meat. Like I just, at this point had been so many years into this that I was like, like I said, I literally would have done anything. I mean, other than eat my own dog. And so basically, at that point, I started with salmon and eggs. And I remember the first time I ate salmon, I threw up. And just emotionally. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even physical. It was just emotional. And it's like, it's a fish, Monica, calm down. But it's like, it still just was very emotional for me. It was also like me going against the ethics of how I'd been raised, like the ethics that made me the human I had been up until that point. My identity as a human was based on these ethics. Yeah. So it's like, it's who you are, right? And so, so it's like, it wasn't a decision I made lightly. And so, so then I was doing that, and I thought, okay, I hate fish. I can't do this. And so then I thought, okay, I'm just going to do birds and eggs, and that's it. So how I did this was I never wanted to see the bones or see it uncooked. So we, luckily living in LA, we did have a lot of restaurants that had pasture-raised, organic, grass-fed, yada, yada, yada. For eggs, I mean, you don't grass-feed eggs, but you know what I mean. Yes. Right. And this person was a nutrition expert that I was seeing for this protocol. And so I followed her food guidelines and other than the red meat. And I did start to notice a difference in how I felt. And so how I managed this was my neighbors and I had become very close. I was in a duplex and we lived side by side. And so the girl who had been living there had sometimes driven me to the doctor when I couldn't drive. And so she knew she'd help me with laundry sometimes. And so they let me keep stuff at their house. So I would just go over there to eat the protein and come back. Like I never kept anything at the house. Mm-hmm. Or I would like go out to like the restaurant down the street and just get like, something there. And so that's how I managed it. And then, my dad saw that I was starting to get more functional. And so he went back home and he was like, all right, well, let's continue this. And if it starts to be a problem, we'll talk about it further. And so, then I hit a wall. So I got more functional, but then I hit a wall and I didn't get any better. And so my sick friend at that point had also started seeing this other person. We were looking at all these different techniques. We were like, it's the world of holistic. What else is out there? So we found this technique called Neuralink that was more so in New Zealand, but it wasn't really in the United States yet at that point. And there was one person who had advanced training in this in the United States, and he was based in Vegas. So we were literally driving to Vegas every week to see this guy from LA.
Just the two of you hop in the car?
Well, we couldn't drive, so her mom would drive us because we were both sick. Yeah. So we couldn't handle a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
So her mom, she was living with her parents because she was really sick too. And so her mom would drive us every week. And I was definitely seeing results from that. This guy did a lot of really cool, weird stuff. I can't even explain everything he did. He did Neuralink. He did TBM, which is total body modification. He did a lot of different unusual combinations of techniques. And I would feel good when I would see him, but I wouldn't feel good all the way. Like it wouldn't last. Mm-hmm. It was like, again, a Band-Aid. And so then my dad said, you should just stay out there and stop driving back and forth. So I got an extended stay property and I just stayed there and saw him 3 times a week to stay functional. So once again,
gosh,
this is a journey. That's why when people are like, oh, every practitioner went through a period where they were sick, I'm like, not like this.
Not like this.
This is extra.
This is extra. So, so he was the first person. He was very woo-woo, which I was really starting to dig. Like I was into the woo-woo at this point because all the doctors, I was like, you're my enemies. And so he was, and he was finding things and he was really helping, but it was, again, a Band-Aid. Like I was a little bit on a hamster wheel, but he was keeping me more functional and he was using similar supplementation. And, he said, you are supposed to be a practitioner. You're not supposed to be acting. And I was like, what? I'm like, no. I'm like, when I get my health back, I'm going back to acting. I'm like, screw this. Like, I love acting. And he just kept telling, you're supposed to be a practitioner. And I was like, stop saying that to me. And then one day I was like, I think he's right.
Wow.
And so that's what planted the seed. And then, once again, hit a point with that where it wasn't moving forward, and I still wasn't eating red meat yet. So then I went back to LA. We found this other weird guy in Malibu who back then, and this is really, expensive for back then, he was $500 for every 15 minutes. And this is back in like 2000, I don't know, 6 or 7 at this point.
I mean, that's expensive for now.
I know.
Wow.
So this guy did wild muscle testing like you've never seen. It was like, it was like
a ninja.
It was really
cool,
wild. And he goes, "You aren't eating red meat." And I was like, "True." And he said, "Well, you're not going to get healthy without the red meat. You need the red meat to heal all the way." And I was like, "What?" So once again, I'm going to make an experiment. I don't want to do it. It looks bloody to me. I just don't want any part of this. So once again, I start with, I don't want to see it before it's cooked. I want someone else to cook it.
Yeah.
I need to hide it in things. I don't want to be aware of it, So I started doing it that way. And boy, did it make a gigantic difference. I mean, it was like somebody taking a giant foggy veil off of your head and your face, when the red meat came in the picture. It was a whole different ball game. So then at this point, the person who originally got me to start eating animal protein was doing this specific type of technique with muscle testing, and she was mixing 2 techniques. She was doing NRT and QRA. QRA is quantum reflex analysis. NRT is nutrition response testing. So me and my sickie friend were conspiring and being like, let's see what we can find online. Because now, internet's more of a thing, obviously. And so we found that we could order a DVD and test kits for the NRT aspect of it. And I was like, let's just get this stuff online and see what happens. Let's see if we can figure stuff out on our own. So that's how that started. And so I got the DVD kit and I got the thing. And then I started just studying it. And now I had part of my brain back. Because if this was before, there's no way I could have retained anything. I had no brain. But now I had part of my brain back. So I was still dealing with unpredictability with functioning, but I could absorb information. So I started experimenting with that at home. And she started getting into some other stuff too. And we both were looking into all kinds of different things, like hair analysis with Dr. Lawrence Wilson for metals. Is it metals? We're doing the metal fillings and just trying everything under the sun. I think I tried every technique out there. It was like a giant exploratory thing. And so at that point, the NRT people had reached out to me and they were like, "Oh, we saw," they left me a voicemail. They were like, "Oh, we saw you bought our DVD, blah, blah, test kit." And I was like, "Oh, busted. I'm going to get in so much trouble. There was probably an accident." And they were like, "Would you like to come out for training?" And I was like, yes, I would like to come out for training. So that's how it started. And so once I went out there, and that was in Florida. And so once I went out there, I did the beginning and intermediate training back to back. And it's all in person at the time back then. And the guy who was managing the whole school, he was coming in and checking on the classes. And a lot of times, I do have an acting background. So a lot of times I'd be up on the stage, we'd be doing demos, and I'm like, everything was making sense to me. I don't know why. It all made sense. I understood everything they were teaching. I was still sick. I still couldn't totally eat solid food. I was functional, but not fully functional. I was still dealing with unpredictability, and I was still having pain. So, definitely better, but there were days I couldn't get out of the bed in the hotel room and couldn't come into class. So that it still wasn't like I could be normal yet. So, the guy who was, in charge of the school or whatever, he pulls me into his office and he was like, "You're really good at this. You get this." And I'm like, "Yep." and he goes, I want you to do the advanced training. I think you would be a huge asset, that we really need someone like you. You're in the Los Angeles area. And there were certain requirements they had at the time that he let slide for me because like they were only doing advanced training for people who already had an existing practice and already had existing patients and yada, yada, yada. So there was all this stuff, but I weirdly just got all of it. I understood the organs. Everything made sense to me. There were like medical doctors in class with us and I was like explaining to them how it worked. I just don't know why. I was always finishing all my tests first. It just made sense to me. And I loved it. It just was like puzzle solving. It was like Fibonacci. It was all patterns and it all just made sense. And I was just enjoying it. And so I did the advanced training eventually, not right away, but eventually. And then I couldn't even get an account at Standard Process because they were like, you don't have the credentials of that level that we would require. And so I went to a Standard Process event and I stood up and spoke. And the head of Standard Process came over to me and he goes, you need an account. And I was like, thanks.
This is all I had to do?
Yeah. It was just really wild how it all fell into place. So basically then through me learning all of that, and, you know, I had a dear friend at the time who was partnered with me. You would get partners for drills, and we were doing the muscle testing together. And then I'm the one that figured out, based on the stuff that I learned during this certification and training, what everyone else had missed, which was priority gallbladder, because you do priorities, you do nervous system, you do all this stuff. And so for me, that was the one thing that still hadn't been resolved. And in the training that we had done, the supplement that correlated to that was choline. How crazy is that? This is where choline, the full circle.
Yes.
So once I started taking very high levels of choline by Standard Process, my body started to respond properly to everything and all of the problems went away. Because when your nervous system is blocked, no matter in your nervous system, and we can talk more about this in a second too, but if your nervous system is blocked or switched, nothing you take will work the way it's supposed to. You can take stuff for parasites. You can take stuff for bacteria. You can take stuff for detoxing. It will not work if your nervous system is blocked or switched because that will prevent the messaging from being received properly by the body. I was blocked to the choline deficiency. So without the choline as a supplement and eating the meat wasn't enough, without it helped, but choline alone wouldn't have done it, and eating meat alone wouldn't have done it. It needed to be both because of the severity of my condition from not only being vegan my whole life, but taking high levels of niacin for that period. That's why I never recovered during that time. So as a result of that, my body started to respond finally to treating for parasites and fungus and bacteria and all the other things because it wasn't working before. And that's why nothing anyone gave me ever worked, because I had neurogenic blocking from the choline deficiency.
And you never would have found that out without muscle testing.
Never without muscle testing, and never. And by the way, I went to every muscle tester on the planet. None of them figured it out either. I was the one that figured it out.
Right.
And it was because I just took to this like a duck to water. All of this made sense. It was like Fibonacci. It was like all these patterns. It's like, you know, when you watch TV shows and they have some kind of weird, like the autistic doctor gets all the pictures in his brain. It was like that.
Like a beautiful
literally.
mind.
Yes, it was like that. All of a sudden, everything was like, and I was like, this makes sense. And then it worked. You know? Yeah. But even my teacher tested me. Even I went to see like the highest experts in the field for that technique, and they couldn't figure it out. None of them. Because it was so weird. I'm the weirdo. And I love working with the weirdos for that reason, because I'm the person who cracks all the weird cases.
Yes. We need more weirdos like you out there
I
to
love
help
the
us crack
weirdos.
the
The
weird
weirdos
cases.
are my people.
So that's a good transition to what you do now as a holistic healthcare practitioner that helps with mystery illnesses. Is it always the gallbladder?
No.
Okay. So is it always choline?
No.
Okay. So then
I've never
what
seen it
is
be
your
choline
approach?
on anyone. Not once. I was the only one.
You were the one.
Yeah.
So then what is your approach? What is your process?
Yeah. So it's never the same thing for anyone I see. Everyone is different. Everyone's a snowflake. There's no
One size
commonality.
fits all.
There's no commonality in the mystery illness. It's different for each person. So the neurogenic blocking and switching is something I learned through NRT. Through my Fibonacci brain, I developed that into an even more honed level of muscle testing that we call functional interference testing, because There are so many hidden neurogenic blocks to past surgeries, organs, scar interference, bacteria that's gone unaddressed. So what happens is, I have a whole video on the 5 layers to illness, but basically how it works is the first layer to illness, and this is why people are getting symptoms and they're not showing up in labs. We get symptoms before it will show up in labs because we're living in an age and in a time where the parameters for labs are antiquated because they were created back before we had 5G, cell phones, microwaves. You know, nothing's changed with lab parameters, right? So the problem is that you can't use labs. It's great to rule out serious disease, but you can't use labs to determine if something's wrong with someone because we're feeling symptoms sooner than they'll show up in labs. And so what happens is that there will be toxins, whether it's heavy metals, whether it's chemicals that overburden the body. And if you think of it like if you're pouring water into a colander and you pour it in faster than it can drain out of the little holes, it'll overflow. That's what happens in the body. When we're exposed to more toxicity, and that can be EMF from cell phones and computers, that can be from the pesticides being used today, that can be from the toxins in our everyday life, dirty electricity, hybrids, you name it. And so these things build up so much so that the drainage organs can't handle draining it as fast as it's getting exposed. That starts to overflow and interrupt your body's ability to make the digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid it needs to be able to assimilate nutrients when you're eating. So then that's the next layer. The next layer is digestion. So now you're not actually able to use your nutrients properly. I don't even know if you're eating right. So then that doesn't help. And so now you've got this interruption happening where if that goes on for too long and doesn't get addressed, then it becomes what we call the allergy layer. And that's, if you look at the definition of an allergy, it's an inflamed immune response. If you fix those other layers that are causing the inflamed immune response, you can actually get rid of allergies. Every single person who's ever seen me got rid of their allergies. So that's basically all an allergy is. At this point, you've maybe got food sensitivities because you're not making the digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid. So now the next layer after allergies is what we call pathogens. It's still not enough to show up in labs. You still have your bouncer at the door. He's going like this. He's not there. He can't recognize the enemies. He can't fight them off. So now you're dealing with, so you have to think of it like this. Pathogens like virus, bacteria, fungus, parasites, they're like criminals looking for an open car door. And your bouncer, he's over there. He's getting drunk with the girls. You basically have nothing protecting you, and now your car door's open. So they're just going like this, trying to find an open car door. You're a mammal. You're exposed to these pathogens all day, every day. I love when people go, oh, well, if you haven't traveled to a third world country, you don't have parasites. Right, because when they get to the American border, they're like, oh, jump off the body, folks. We're not allowed. It doesn't work that way. You touch anything. You touch a pet. You touch, you get intimate with someone who's got parasites. Breastfeeding, you name it. You can get parasites everywhere. Eating in a restaurant, you're exposed to them all the time. Parasites are not only the ones that are visible by the naked eye. They're amoeba, they're protozoa. Your parasites can have parasites. It's a whole party in there. You do not want to set up a buffet and feed them and welcome them to stay. You want to starve them. And so at this point, you still have normal labs. All of these things can be causing symptoms and even more sensitivity. Now when you've got fungus in there, and by the way, they all like to hang out together. So it's like if you've got bacteria, don't think you don't have fungus. I don't care. If someone says, oh, you have SIBO, oh, you have H. pylori, you also have fungus. There's no way one's without the other. So now the overgrowth of fungus grows like tree roots into the intestinal tract and causes little perforations. Well, guess what? The food gets into the bloodstream through these little perforations in the intestinal tract. Now you're allergic to that food. And the list goes on. So what you got to do is reverse it like rewinding a VHS tape. And that's how I get the results. But guess what? If I try to do that on anybody and they are neurogenically blocked or switched to an organ, to a past injury or scar, to a surgery, to even old brain injuries have shown up that don't get caught. Once I get someone on the right supplementation for that thing, then their body will respond to everything else. So a lot of the people that come into me have already tried to deal with bacteria or fungus or even parasites and just not gotten any results. And that's why.
I think you just said if anyone is neurogenically blocked or switched to an organ.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So in my case, I was neurogenically blocked to my gallbladder.
Okay.
And I have had so many people. So I had this one guy who he used to be a boxer. And so he was neurogenically blocked to his brain from getting head injuries and getting hit as a boxer over and over again. I've seen that a lot with guys who are MMA or hockey, football, things like that. I've also worked with professional athletes who had those types of injuries. And so then I would put them on, in that case, they would be on neurotrophin, which is, and nobody start taking that just because you think you need it, please, because that can mess you up if you don't need it. Right. And so neurotrophin is, disclaimer, neurotrophin is basically bovine glandular brain tissue, and it's extracted in a protomorphogen way from standard process that actually heals that tissue and restores function to it, so then your body can respond properly. Scar interference, if you have a scar on the surface of your skin, that interrupts the communication from the nervous system to the body, and in some cases it can cause neurogenic switching and blocking, in some cases not. It just depends. There was someone who had chronic asthma, and he had a scar on his chest from a surgery, and when that scar got treated with red light therapy and wheat germ oil, it's a specific type of oil from standard process, it deactivated that interference and the asthma went away. So there's a lot of times where it's like weird stuff. And what's funny is the medical community knows that scars cause interference. What do you think ablation is? Ablation is scarring. So when they go in and do uterine ablation for women who are having excess bleeding, that's a Band-Aid. They're not looking at why the woman's having excess bleeding. They're just trying to stop it by scarring. Same thing with atrial fib, and you're looking at a regular heartbeat. They go in and scar around the heart to interrupt function to make it stop doing the irregular heartbeat, but they're not fixing why the heart's doing that. So they know scarring causes interruption. Just because it causes interruption there too. So basically, and other organ examples, if a lot of people have had gallbladders taken out. A lot of women have had their uterus taken out. And ovaries. And it can also be just from, for a big one that I see a lot of times is some people who have had spinal surgeries, or in my case, I also had a secondary where this arm broke off my body when I was 9 and they were going to amputate it, but they reattached it, which in the 70s is a big deal. Let me tell you, they didn't know what they were doing back then. And so I had to take a bovine ostrophin for that because I was doing lifting weights and I was using it for muscle testing. So, as I got older, I started needing to take that supplement. So you can be blocked to any organ, really. They found that a lot of autistic people were actually blocked to the heart. And so there's a way to do reverse blocking testing to determine if somebody is blocked to an organ, but it happens more often than you would think from things people don't even think about, like someone who had a total knee replacement surgery, or they took a piece of their hamstring to repair an ACL, anything like that.
I mean, I feel like we could have a whole episode on the muscle testing aspect of this, and I would love to actually do that. I think that a lot of people are curious about it. We could do it at my office and show examples. Yes. I mean, I would love to dive more into it personally.
Yeah, I'd love that.
If you could, I don't know if you're planning to write a book or if you
have a book.
You have a book already.
Yes.
All right. What is the name of your book?
Treat the Source.
Treat the Source. Okay.
It's on Amazon. I just have the digital version, and I wrote it back in 2017, and I am planning, I've just been so busy, but I've been planning to do a rewrite update on it and do a re-release on it, which I'm planning to do probably in summer of next year.
Okay, so Treat the Source. And where can people, it's on Amazon. Where's best for them to follow you? Instagram?
Instagram, yeah. I'm on TikTok, but Instagram's really my main channel.
Okay.
Treat the Source.
Treat the Source.
Yeah.
That's the handle?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my trademark. That's my brand. That's my slogan.
Treat the Source. That's what everybody wants.
Well, I know that I'm following you. I can't wait to learn more from you.
Yeah.
This has been a very fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
I definitely want to plan on a
follow-up.
Just a follow-up because there's so much more that we can get into.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And inspiring people to hang in there, to keep going, because there is an answer. And hopefully by following you, people can even learn more about their own health journeys.
Yeah, thank you.
In closing, we like to ask our guests a couple of questions. Number one, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you were at your worst, when you were at your rock bottom, where were you on that scale? If 10 was the best and 1 was the worst, where were you at?
I mean, I thought I was dying every day, so I would say not even 1. I would say it was a 0 pretty much.
Yeah. And how about nowadays? Where are you at on
Well,
that
that's
same
what's such
scale?
a trip. Like, I'm turning 60, and I literally feel better than I did in my 20s when I was living on coffee bean and tea leaf.
Yeah.
That's what's the trip.
That's
I mean,
great.
it makes sense. Nutrients matter.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Let's close with that.
Nutrients matter.
Well,
Mic drop.
The last question I want to ask is, how much of this story does your dad know?
Oh, all of it.
All of it.
Yeah, we've been interviewed a lot. I've done a lot of podcasts about it. So this continued because then, I had to tell him, and then there were different iterations of his acceptance of it because he was still producing the live events. So then when I would go to the events, and then when people started, as I got into this and became a practitioner, and my practice blew up and got super busy really fast, and then we started talking about how then when I started seeing people and posting about it, then I started having people who knew me from when I was younger reaching out that were in the animal rights community looking for help, that were also started secretly eating animal protein to get their health back. And so it was a journey because I did get a lot of threats on social media. People would DM me and say, how can you do this with who your father is and the difference he's made? And this is terrible. And there's actually active Reddit threads right now. Like I don't know why I'm saying this on your podcast, but there are Reddit threads out there that I found where I'm like, wow. Like
There's a lot of stuff on Reddit.
People finding random pictures of me and my dad and posting it on Reddit and writing like, yeah, I wonder what he must have done to get her to turn and start eating meat, and just really rude stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and then other people chime in, no, dude, she was really sick. Have you read her bio? And I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Like,
They're having whole conversations about you.
Yes, it's so weird.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that it did not blow up your relationship with your dad.
It didn't, and it was challenging. Like, I definitely had to take the risk that I might lose him. And there was a moment where I wasn't sure what way it was going to go, and I had to stick to what was right for me during that time and be willing to lose him. And he had to go through his processing and journey of it, and I had to give him the space to do that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Monica.
Thanks.
Such a pleasure having you, and we'll have you back soon.
Thank you so much.
This episode of the Rock Bottom Podcast is brought to you by Jigsaw Health, a family-owned, Arizona-based nutritional supplement company. Every formula is made with clean ingredients that are third-party tested to ensure that what's on the label is in the bottle and nothing else. Learn more at jigsawhealth.com.
Do you have a health horror story? We're always looking for stories that will inspire others, so please use the link in the description to apply to be on our show. Finally, if this episode resonated with you, then please like and subscribe. It really helps others to find our show, and we want to help spread the word. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show.